protracted standoff and several diplomatic and military level talks, Indian Defence Minister Rajnath Singh today announced that India and China have begun the process of disengagement along the line of actual control. Rajnath Singh has said that both China and India have agreed to mutually disengage troop activity in full. The disengagement has already begun along the line of actual control in eastern Ladakh on the north and south banks of the Pangong Lake. Rajnath Singh has reiterated, and I quote, "Not an inch of land has been ceded."
सभापति महोदय, मुझे सदन को यह बताते हुए खुशी हो रही है कि हमारे इस अप्रोच तथा सस्टेन्ड टॉक्स के फलस्वरूप चीन के साथ पैंगोंग लेक के नॉर्थ एवं साउथ बैंक पर डिसएंगेजमेंट का समझौता हो गया है और इस बात पर भी सभापति महोदय इस बात पर भी सहमत हो गई है कि पैंगोंग लेक से पैंगोंग लेक से पूर्ण डिसएंगेजमेंट के 48 आवर्स के अंदर सीनियर कमांडर स्तर की बातचीत हो तथा बाकी बचे हुए मुद्दों पर भी हल निकाला जाए। सभापति महोदय, पैंगोंग लेक एरिया में चीन के साथ डिसएंगेजमेंट का जो समझौता हुआ है उसके अनुसार दोनों पक्ष फॉरवर्ड डिप्लॉयमेंट को फेज्ड, कोऑर्डिनेटेड एंड वेरीफाइड मैनर में हटाएंगे।
The Chinese PLA troops will be present in the North Bank area of the Pangong Lake to the east of Finger 4. To the east of Finger 8, I beg your pardon. They are currently at Finger 4, which is a ridge line. Now they will move back to their original positions, which is east of Finger 8, as they had progressed to Finger 4, which is the fourth ridge line. They will move back beyond Finger 8. Meanwhile, the Indian troops would be stationed at their permanent base at Dancing Thapa post near Finger 3, or the third ridge line, on the northern bank of the Pangong Lake, which is the original position of the Indian troops and the Chinese troops before April 2020. As far as the process of disengagement is concerned, tanks, howitzers and armoured vehicles will be pulled back by both the sides. It will then be followed by the withdrawal of the rival frontline troops from friction points. Meanwhile, the Indian troops continue to hold strategic positions on the ridge hill in Chushul sector, stretching from Thakung to Gurung Hill and Rechen Mountain Pass, which was occupied between the 28th of August and the 30th of August. India-China tensions resurfaced in May 2020 with a series of skirmishes in the Pangong Lake region. The row escalated on the 14th of June when 20 Indian soldiers died for the country in clashes with the PLA in Galwan Valley. Meanwhile, China also suffered casualties. However, China has not officially confirmed the number of dead on their side. Joining us on this broadcast is Atul Aneja, a China expert and former strategic affairs editor at The Hindu. Atul, thank you so much for joining us. How do you see this announcement by Indian Defence Minister Rajnath Singh in the Parliament? The announcement is a welcome one, certainly, that the frontline troops will begin to disengage. Actually, the disengagement process has already begun. Talk about the importance of the Pangong Lake area as well.
Well, I think one can say that the agreement seems to be well thought out and good, sound, and aligns with what India had said time and again, that India wants to restore status quo ante, which was disturbed after the Chinese transgression, in fact intrusion, which took place last year around May. So to that extent, that the objective has been fulfilled, and that is a great achievement. But having said that, Shobit, I think it's very important that the actual process goes through, because we had an agreement also before June 15th last year on the Galwan Valley area. And during the operationalization of that agreement, we had that ugly incident which took place. So I'm a little cautious that while on principle and on the drawing board, it sounds great, but we have to see the actual execution of it, because it's a very complex de-escalation process that has been thought out, and it's going to require a lot of skill on the ground to make it actually happen according to the sequence which has been agreed. I believe there is going to be a meeting of the core commanders within 48 hours. That is going to be crucial to execute this agreement. But by and large, it sounds satisfactory. But again, while we continue with it, it's very important not to let our guards down and to make sure that the execution process goes through and we don't have a repeat of the incident of the kind which happened at the Galwan Valley.
Atul, you mentioned the word cautious, that you remain cautious. How cautious will be the Indian defense establishment? Because a similar sort of de-escalation was talked about before the Galwan Valley incident as well. And we all know what happened after that. So do you reckon the Indian side will be cautious moving ahead in their relationship with China, specifically with regards to a disengagement?
Shobit, I'm certain that that has been factored in already. And from our side, the preparation and the alertness level will be all-time high. So they would be cautious, and I think the micro-planning of this disengagement would be very minutely thought through with all the angles and probably gamed by this time. So it would be done with full awareness and hindsight of what happened in Galwan Valley. And that is actually something which is reassuring, because our guard will be on to watch out for any kind of deception which the Chinese might deploy. So that's a good thing. I think we're going to be cautious. And that's where the other part of what you had said earlier comes in, which is, and what Rajnath Singh said in Parliament about a verifiable mechanism to supervise or to ensure compliance. I think these are going to be the key things which the core commanders will talk about. That how do you do the verification process? Do you fly drones? There are various means in which you can verify. But I think that's going to be a crucial element and which will be in full flow in the execution of the disengagement, which Defense Minister Rajnath Singh said has already been agreed to.
Atul, Rajnath Singh also mentioned the long-standing issues which remain between India and China with regards to Sky Chin, with regards to Arunachal, with regards to the Pakistan-occupied Kashmir as well. But this was certainly one of the most stressful times in recent India-China relations, isn't it? The escalation all along the LAC, especially in the Ladakh sector. But this face-off, this conflict between India and China would have hampered the growth of both the nations, isn't it? So overall, would you welcome this disengagement process, and how was it impacting the growth of India and China?
Well, it certainly is to be welcomed, because but at the same time, I think India-China relationship changed fundamentally after the Galwan Valley incident on June 15th. I think it's going to take a long time to restore confidence. So I think the entire outlook of engagement with China, which must take place, is going to be far different. And the trust deficit is not going to go away so quickly just because of this disengagement. This is crucial. But I think Indian side has been wiser in its stance and its expectations from China. And I think the process of normalization or restoring the status quo on the diplomatic field is going to be a very cautious process again, where trust but verify is going to come into picture big time. And I think that's healthy for the long-term relationship between these two Asian giants. So I don't think normalization of the relationship is going to take place quickly. And I think the onus is really on the Chinese side now to restore that level of trust, because what happened in Ladakh, especially after the Chennai summit between Prime Minister Modi and President Xi Jinping, that has shocked our nation. And the scars of that are still there and will not go away quickly. And I think they should not go away quickly either, because we must start a new process of engagement with far greater realism with China than we have done before. I think we as Indians have a tendency to look at things emotionally at times and to overtrust our neighbor. At the same time, we do not start with the default position of mistrust, but how do you strike this right balance?
Absolutely.
That yes, we are open to engagement, but we are going to do it cautiously, and we are going to be far more careful about verification mechanisms to test out the Chinese than it was before. So it's going to be a gradual case of normalization, and I hope there are no hiccups on the way.
Right. Atul, so this engagement has begun at Pangong. Several other key areas remain, friction points remain, especially the Depsang Plains, where Chinese are believed to be very close to the LAC. According to some reports, their troops may have crossed the LAC as well. So certain other friction points remain, like you've mentioned, and the Defence Minister mentioned. Mechanisms have been put in place to verify the pullback from all friction points. So we've been focusing on India. Let's talk about China very quickly. How was this conflict with India affecting China? Because we've seen support pour in for India in this standoff from global powers led by the United States of America. So how has this relationship with India affected China? We've also seen the Quad gaining more importance, isn't it?
I think so. I think China's image globally has taken a big hit, and the Ladakh incident was definitely a factor in the image drop of China globally, the tarnishing of Chinese image. So I think that is a factor, because this conflated with other friction points which China was having in the East China Sea with the Japanese, in the South China Sea with the ASEAN countries. So it all, and of course with the United States, with the Trump administration was actually calling for the collapse of the Communist Party of China. So all this came together in isolating China in a certain way, and China responded further with its wolf warrior diplomacy, and taking an aggressive stance, leading to further polarization. On top of that, there was this suspicion about the origin of the COVID-19 virus. So I think all this together, including the Ladakh incident, got together and sort of created a big image problem for the Chinese. And I think the world is looking at China with far greater skepticism than it was any time before. And you have so Chinese have opened various fronts by taking this action against India. Another thing which I think is important to realize is that India's maritime awareness, I think, went far ahead during the course of the Ladakh incident, because I think we realized that if you have to counter the Chinese, even in a military way, the answer to that may not be in Ladakh and in the mountains, but really along the Indo-Pacific sea lanes, especially the sea lanes passing through Andaman and Nicobar Islands.
Absolutely.
If you recall, Prime Minister Modi had announced the subsea cable from Chennai to Andaman and Nicobar Islands. I think that's going to be a part of a larger chain which will involve the Japanese and others in the Indo-Pacific. So I think our whole domain awareness and the importance of the maritime domain with this incident has gone much higher than before. And I think that's going to define our doctrines, the military doctrines which we adopt, where for the first time, not first time, but we are going to look all the dimensions of power, military power, and deploy them adequately, and not over-focus just on the land dimension of it.
Atul Aneja, China expert, former strategic affairs editor at The Hindu. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your perspective on this latest development.